Welcome to Why We're Fans. I'm Duran, co-host of this podcast. In all of our episodes, we cover the past, the present, and the future of all your favorite NFL teams. We love hearing your stories. We love talking NFL draft. We love reminiscing about the good old days. If you like the same things, then be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. You can even leave a comment below if you have the answer to any of our questions. Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on our latest interviews. And like we always say, win or lose, we're all fans. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to another episode of Why We're Fans. Today we got a special guest, but before that, let me just get it started. As you know right now, I'm your host, Janera Munez, and always joining me is Duran Munez. Duran, how you doing today, buddy?
Not bad. I think we got some Super Bowl teams figured out now, so that's the sad part about the season is there's only one more game, but hopefully it's the most exciting game of the year.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. All right. One of the coaches in the Super Bowl, I think our guest should know pretty well. But all right, without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our guest. He is the host of Locked On Cardinals on the Locked On Network, Mr. Bo Brack. How you doing today, Bo?
I'm doing great, man. It was a great football weekend. We kind of hit, 50% on those games. The nightcap was a little bit of a stinker, but, man, we got I think we got a pretty fine Super Bowl in a couple weeks.
You got a team you're rooting for?
You know what? I'd like to see Bruce Arians get that W. I mean, you mentioned it, the Cardinals ties. I mean, they don't have any ill will with Arians, how things ended. You knew that he had kind of poor health, and he at the time was the smart move to retire. So I don't have any ill will towards him. I think it'd just be great for that guy to – I mean, I think if he does win, you got to think he's probably going to hang it up at that point, right? What's the point of coming back?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always been a fan of Bruce, knowing – because I grew up watching Michael Vick and seeing that he led Virginia Tech in rushing yards for a quarterback. I always thought that was so awesome. And then seeing Bruce Arians just, kill it with his time at Pittsburgh, Colts, Cardinals, and now with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, it's awesome to see.
It's that is one of the oddest stats of ever, right? It's like Michael Vick and then Bruce Arians both led the Hokies in rushing at one point. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely crazy because they had Mike, they had his little brother Marcus, and they had Tyrod too, and they had Logan Thomas, and then he still led it. It's crazy stat, like you said, definitely.
So that's a kind of a crazy group of quarterbacks there. Logan Thomas, kind of a beast tight end now for the Washington football team. He was a former Cardinals quarterback for like a year. It was insane. He was a former 4th round pick of them. So it's it's kind of a cool story. I actually grew up in Virginia, so I followed those Vic teams pretty closely. I say Vic teams. There was only really 2 seasons of Vic down there in Blacksburg. But man, to go up against the heavyweights back then, like Peter Work and Florida State, those were some good years.
Definitely, man. So let's do you have any work or anything you want to promote besides the Locked On podcast?
The podcast is kind of the main thing, man. Locked On Network, we're doing big things. It just continues to grow. It seems like every week we've got something else going on, and it's really just a tribute to the fans out there, the people that just want to hear about their team on a daily basis. And we're just churning out podcasts every day. Every single day we're cracking the mics and we're talking about the latest news. Like today, my co-host and Alex and I were just breaking down, are we rooting for Bruce Arians? Is there kind of a jagged pill there? Or, our Cardinals fans are hoping to see some success. Tyrann Mathieu, a guy, kind of the one that got away a couple of years ago. They kind of had to make him a cap casualty, and now he's in his 2nd straight Super Bowl. He was a huge fan favorite for a long time. And to see him have that success, I think that's another guy people are rooting for. I don't think if you're a Cardinals fan, you're probably good with how this one goes down either way.
Yeah, definitely.
So just in that, it's just Locked On Cardinals. You can find it wherever you find podcasts, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're everywhere.
Right on. We'll have our producer put on everything, all the links and everything below in the description in this YouTube. But all right, man, let's get this started. You know what I mean? This podcast is about the fans, and you're a fan of the Cardinals, so we want to know We want to interview you a couple things for you. But Duran, go and kick it off, man. Let's go.
Yeah, I heard you say you grew up in Virginia, so I want to know how you ultimately became a Cardinals fan, Arizona Cardinals fan.
Sure, man. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Washington D.C. area, and then once it came time to go to college, I went out west. I just kind of fell in love with it. I had grandparents that lived in Scottsdale, which is just a suburb of Phoenix, and I would go out there every once in a while, visit, go to Sun Devil Stadium. I also got to watch a lot of Washington, Arizona matchups back in the old NFC East, which was strange that Phoenix was in the NFC East, so was Dallas. And I remember watching Jake Plummer and some the Cardinals. They were kind of like a laughing stock for a while, right? There wasn't a whole lot of respect on their name. And once I kind of moved out there, things kind of started to change. Bill Bidwell kind of relinquished the ownership to his son, Michael Bidwell, and he kind of took the reins, and they got a new stadium in 06. And it's just been it's been a huge facelift for this organization. And working in sports media in Phoenix for as long as I did, I covered this team for a long time. And, it's tough not to start rooting for those teams, because when you have the thin years, you see how tough it is to cover the team. Sure, there's some interesting storylines as far as the draft goes and how they can get better, but you just get tired of it. You start rooting for them. And then next thing you know, I mean, you're watching the games with a vested interest, and you just want to see them succeed, because it's good not just for the fan base and the organization. It's just good for the community. I mean, we've seen how powerful a successful football team is, and I just want that for the Phoenix community. And when you've got a guy and Larry Fitzgerald, I don't care if you're in the sports media and you've got to be objective. How do you not love Larry Fitzgerald? I mean, Larry Legend is just an incredible player that the Cardinals fans have been fortunate enough to watch for 17 years now. So that was part of it, but it's just kind of, everybody loves an underdog. You want to see somebody start from the ground level and then work their way up to champion. And some, with the Cardinals organization, things started in the late 80s and it was thin the entire 90s. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find a worse organization during that decade. And then I think with Kyler Murray now in place, there's a lot to root for. There's a lot to be excited for. This offseason is going to be so key in that rebuild. They've done some nice things, but they are not even close to, the four teams we watched on Sunday in the conference championship. But that's just a little bit of it, of why, I'm covering the team every day and why I'm rooting for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Have you noticed? I know you mentioned Kyler Murray. Of course, they got DeAndre Hopkins now. Have you seen that fan base kind of grow since you first moved to Scottsdale? It seems like the fan base has gotten bigger and bigger each year.
No, it really has. I mean, when you used to think of Phoenix, you used to think of the Phoenix Suns. It was a basketball town. It really was. It was
Charles Nash.
Yeah, well, even before that, Charles Barkley. I mean, they went to the finals, and Steve Kerr or John Paxson broke their heart. And they were a basketball team. And then absolutely, Steve Nash. When I moved there, I mean, that was the run and gun, 7 seconds or less Suns. Nash wins 2 MVPs. Yeah. And the only way that the Cardinals got back on track was this unprecedented Super Bowl run with Kurt Warner, and Larry Fitzgerald has this incredible postseason where he scores like 7 touchdowns. He just went absolutely bananas. And the offense leaves the field with the lead. And then Twinkle Toes Santonio Holmes and Ben Roethlisberger are ripping our hearts out. But that started something. That started something huge, and it changed the expectations of this fan base. They're like, hey, this is a lot of fun to watch a team play deep into January and compete for probably the most prestigious, trophy in all of sports right now. And that's the Lombardi Trophy. So, people got that little taste and they wanted some more, and it's been a long road back. There was the BA area, but there's been a lot of tough years in between, but man, it's transformed. Certainly it's Cardinals way up here, and then maybe the Suns, and then Diamondbacks, and then Coyotes below that. And then you look at the college sports.
Definitely.
I know you mentioned the new stadium that the Cardinals built. Have you been to a game there? And if so, do you remember the first time you walked into that stadium?
Yeah, I was fortunate to cover the team for a long time. I think I covered the team where I was going each and every home game for 8 or 9 seasons.
Awesome.
So yeah, but I mean, I went in as a fan a couple times. I think the first time I ever went in was against the Andre Johnson Houston Texans. I had just been floated some tickets from somebody that didn't want to use them. I'm just a huge sports fan, so shit, let's go. And so I went in there and went to a couple Washington games. Watched the Washington football team. Am I allowed to say their old nickname back on this podcast? Is that cool?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, man, that's fine.
I mean, they were the Redskins, right?
They were, yeah.
I watched some Redskins games back in the day because I grew up rooting for that team originally, and it was it's a great place to watch. It gets loud in there. The Red Sea they don't get enough credit. Like they've sold out every single game that they've had in that stadium, and it's pretty electric in there. And but I've seen some incredible performances. The one that stands out to me, and I always tell people the greatest game I've ever seen it was in the playoffs. I want to say 2015, and the Green Bay Packers came into town, and Aaron Rodgers had no receivers, and they were down a touchdown, and they were on their own 1 yard line, and Aaron Rodgers basically threw back-to-back Hail Mary passes and completed them to Jeff Janis for like 99 plus yards, and they tie that game. It goes to overtime. And Carson Palmer hits Larry Fitzgerald on this weird play where he throws across the field and Larry goes 75 yards. And then they cap that drive and then go to they punch their ticket to the next round with a little shovel pass. That's got to be the wildest game I've ever seen live.
Yeah, I know that stadium was built in like 06.
Yeah.
And till to this day, like you said, it's one of the most visited fan attraction in the NFL today.
That's kind of tough though too, right? Because you got like a lot of like when the Steelers play, you're too many terrible towels in there still.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a 49er fan, so I know you guys played host to us this year. So
yeah,
definitely, much thanks to y'all. I always think that was a super classy move by that organization.
You guys were bad guests, man. You beat us in week 16. That was brutal.
Yeah, man. That was still, man. Like you said, honestly, that fan base travels well because I've been to a Levi Stadium game and you got some Arizona Cardinals. I thought they were Niner fans and they were waving the red flag, and I get close. Oh man, you guys are Cardinals fans. Man, what the hell?
It's budding. It's definitely it's not where Niner Nation is. It's not where Cowboys fans obviously are, but it's growing. Let's keep in perspective that this is a team that basically came here in '89. And it's still got a long way to go. And there's a ton of transplants like myself. I mean, there aren't a lot of people that were born and grew up Cardinals fans. So it's going to be important. And, I really don't like when people have kids and then they raise them to be the fans of another team. Like when I went to Redskins games growing up and you had that camaraderie and you were in the stadium of 80,000 people cheering on the same team and tailgating for the same team. There's something about that's special. And I just wish people would be like, okay, let's embrace this team. And they're starting to, absolutely. But it's just beginning of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Washington's always had great fan base too.
Yeah, even though they haven't had a lot to cheer for lately.
That's weird. There's some fan bases out there where they kind of take on that pride where, hey, we're just going to be great fans, win or lose.
Right.
I mean, Browns are known to have really good fans too. And
Raiders,
they haven't won anything in a long time, but this is their best year in a long time.
Bills Mafia. I mean, come on.
Bills Mafia.
They go 0 for 4 in the 90s, and they're still showing up in full force.
Hey, maybe these fan bases are on their way up. Brighter days ahead.
Yeah.
Breaking tables and also breaking fan attendance records, man.
I know you said you worked for the team for a while. I don't know if this was unprofessional to ask or anything for you, but did you gather any like signed memorabilia, or do you have anything like that you got to collect?
I didn't work for the team. I just worked I worked in sports talk radio for a long time. But still that's like, it's frowned upon, obviously.
Yeah.
But I had a couple things, like we got a David Johnson signed football from a charity event. I got Calais Campbell signed helmet. And that's where they kind of give you some stuff. And that's all fair game. But yeah, I never like asked anybody for their autograph. Thought that would be, that would definitely I was already kind of they give me any reason to kick me out of there. So
Exactly.
yeah,
And if
I
you're
kind of
going to games consistently, don't jeopardize that at all.
yeah, no doubt about it, man. You got to you just got to play by the rules, and it's worth it. I mean, but yeah, I think I gave my nephew the David Johnson football, and that ended up being the smart move after he kind of fell off a cliff with his production. All fantasy players know that by now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Man.
Do you remember your first Arizona Cardinals jersey?
Oh man, I don't think I've ever bought a jersey, to be honest with you. I got the Hail Mary shirt, I got representing the Hail Mary where DeAndre Hopkins was just a beast and went over 3 Bills defenders this season. I said I got to have that, but man, I don't know. I think I stopped wearing jerseys. I had a bad run there with Washington where I would buy a jersey and then the guy would be out the door like the next year. I was like, I got to get myself a LeVar Arrington jersey. You remember him?
Yeah.
You got to get a Sean Taylor jersey, man. Come on.
That's what I'm talking about. You got to go old school because guys are leaving so much so quick. So yeah, I got I think I got a couple guys, and like Arrington was like the last straw. I was like, man, if he's done, who else am I going to get? You're right. You got to get like a Sean Taylor, but I mean, if I were to get one, it'd be Larry. It's going to be timeless. You're going to see that forever in Phoenix. So probably got to go Larry Legend, but you wouldn't be dumb to get a number 1 these days because Murray's the real deal.
Yeah, he's definitely, man, that guy is so hard to catch out there. I see him just trailing back. It's like, oh, he's going to lose 10 yards. And all of a sudden he sprints and gains 20. I'm like, Jesus, man.
Yeah. Dude, it's a force. I just don't, they didn't have enough down the stretch to get it done. He, they started opposing teams started game planning. He might have had a shoulder injury at one point, and he had the leg injury in the final game of the season. But it's they got outside of Nook Hopkins, man, they don't have much, and it's going to be a big offseason for them to get some talent on the offensive side of the football to really match up. I mean, the Niners are going to be back. I don't know what they'll do at the quarterback position, but they got a lot of talent on defense coming back. If they get healthy, they're going to be right back in the thick of things. And then the Rams and Seahawks are there to stay too. So it's going to be a pretty pivotal offseason for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Who do you think the number 1 rival is in that division for you guys?
It's got to be the Niners. I mean, they make the most noise when they come to the stadium, and there's always fights breaking out. And it's they can't beat Sean McVay, so that's not even a rivalry. I think they're like 0-8 against McVay. Mm-hmm. Russ and the Seahawks have kind of picked on them for a while. But the Seahawks were kind of their rival during the BA time because they were both vying for playoff spots, and the Niners had a couple thin years. So, it kind of goes back and forth. But I would say the 49ers. There's a rivalry between California and Arizona. Like there's a lot of transplants from California. So, and there's I think a piece of Scottsdale and the surrounding areas that kind of likes what Californians do.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah, I always thought your guys' rival was actually the Rams, but I did not know you guys' records against McVay.
It's wild. They just can't beat that guy. They were, I think they were like 8-0 against the Niners for a while, and then Shanahan had last year, and then he got he ended that little skid, and then they split this year. So
yeah,
they've been pretty good against San Francisco lately.
Definitely.
You got anything else on how it started, G?
No, I don't.
I got one more. I just want to know what your like game day ritual is. Do you watch the game all alone? Do you watch it with buddies? What's your thing?
Man, with the Cardinals game, I'm actually kind of a stick in the mud. I kind of like to watch it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And just dial into Twitter and just kind of give my stupid observations and just kind of like to pal around with a bunch of Cardinals fans on Twitter. And then, I mean, if it's not a Cardinals game, yeah, I'm getting together with some friends and, cracking some beers and eating some good food and just enjoying the whole experience. But no, Cardinals game kind of dialed in, I might need to lighten up.
Is there a beer of choice that you like to drink during the games, whether it be light or heavy? I mean, we're double IPA guys, so I've been drinking a lot of that lately.
My palate's kind of gotten a little bit more mature. It's no longer cracking a couple Miller Lights or CL Smooths, and just putting back as many as I possibly can. But so it's it's cracking. We've got some good local breweries, and Four Peaks, they put out a couple good, nice brews, craft beers. So I appreciate those. I can appreciate that now. Some IPAs.
Well, we're from Sonoma County, the home of like the great beers, so we'll probably send some out your way for sure.
Let's do it.
Hell yeah, man.
All right, moving on. We want to guess your favorite player, and we talked a little bit about this before you even got online with us. And I told G, I think it's kind of hard to pass this guy up. I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald. I know you mentioned him even before with the jersey stuff and things like that. But G, is there someone you want to dig a little deeper with someone else?
Well, it's funny because my two favorite receivers of all time, everyone's favorite nowadays, are like Odell Beckham Jr. or Tyreek Hill or whatnot. But I've always had love and respect for both Larry and Anquan. But I'm ultimately gonna have to side with Duran here and say Larry Fitzgerald to myself, because earlier you referenced that Cardinals were a laughingstock. I think that ended in 2004 where Larry was drafted. So
it certainly started it. No, I mean there's a lot to like, but if I want to kind of get there's some deep cuts there.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear him.
Lately it's Buda Baker, man. That kid is just a little missile. He just lights kids up, and then he had the big play. Sure, like everybody wants to watch DK Metcalf, but Buda Baker's play on the ball, intercept Russell Wilson where he gets tracked down, where DK Metcalf is going like 22 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I mean, Buda Baker's, he put himself in the conversation this year for the top safety in the league, and he's just fun to watch, man.
I think he's a stingy player, man, because he's still all those tackles, but that's something I love about him. And actually, Duran's the one that put me on him coming out of Washington. He said, watch this kid. This kid's going to be great. And as soon as you guys drafted him, I was like, damn it, dude. Like, this guy's a stud.
Yeah, their GM hasn't made a lot of good draft picks, and he traded up and he selected Buda Baker. And it was kind of he just started performing like right away with as far as special teams, and then just did it the right way. He just got better and better and better each and every season. And then he just really popped this year. So he's just a blast to watch. And then as you mentioned, Anquan Bolden was just sick to watch, just physical, just a tough runner. He was just like the opposite of Larry Fitzgerald, like not to like crush Larry Fitzgerald or anything, but Anquan Bolden he almost looked like a running back when he catch the football. He was just a bruiser, man. And I was sad to see him go. He goes to Baltimore and then he goes to San Francisco. So Q is always great to watch. I liked, do you remember the name Adrian Wilson? He was a big hard-hitting safety.
Oh, yeah.
And Tyrann Mathieu was always fun to watch, the Honey Badger. Just those guys that are just athletic freaks, man, that just fly around the field. It's just fun to watch.
I don't know how old you are, man, but I don't know if you remember Aeneas Williams.
Aeneas Williams, absolutely. And then, when you think about the Cardinals too, is a name is like Pat Tillman. Remember Pat Tillman? He was an American hero.
Yep, I know that.
Yeah, a guy he started ASU locally, and then he goes late in the draft and then turns himself into a multi-million-dollar player and gives it all up after 9/11. Jake Plummer was always fun to watch, also an ASU guy. And he kind of helped. He sent them to the playoffs late in the 90s, and they beat the Cowboys. It was there's a ton of guys to root for now. Like, it's different. It's like, okay, you had that consolation prize of a guy that was fun to root for, and then the team didn't have a lot of success. Now it's like, now you got Kyle to root for, you got DeAndre Hopkins, and they were vying for a playoff spot. So that's a lot more fun than just being like, it's my favorite player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know Pat Tillman, he had his like coming out year, pretty much his last year playing football was in 2000, where he made the All-Pro team. He had 100+ tackles, and like 9 deflections. That guy he got love because of his all-out play. And like, he wasn't always the fastest, but he was always around the ball. And when he was, he'd either try to force that ball out, or he's going to make you feel his presence for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The guy was a great player. And I mean, the fact that he gave that up, it's insane, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
What a story.
Definitely.
I didn't know he had that much production.
Yeah.
And it wasn't expected. It just came. It just came out of nowhere. I mean, he just earned every snap he got, and then next thing you know, like you guys were saying, he just he beasted out in that final season before he joined the military.
Yeah. He's coming out of I think Leland High School in San Jose, and I think they named the football field after him for sure.
Nice. Yeah, they've got they got a statue out front of the stadium. That's pretty cool. And then they do a little 4.2 mile race because his number is 42 for Arizona State, and like 30,000 people running that every year.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's gone, but definitely not forgotten. That's for sure. He made his impact.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was going back to Larry Fitzgerald. I was just looking back at all the Arizona Cardinals records and all-time stuff like that. And I mean, Larry is up there in every category by a mile.
Yeah.
Total receiving yards, he's ahead of number 2 by 9,000 yards. Touchdowns, he's ahead of number 2 by 55 touchdowns. And receptions, he's ahead of number 2, which I think is Anquan Boldin, by 846. It's just, he's one of those guys that, of course, Hall of Famer here, 4 years or 3 years after he retires. And man, that guy, he's just been consistent for so long.
Like, think about the quarterbacks he was catching passes from.
Mm-hmm.
So many.
Outside of Carson Palmer and Kyler Murray and Kurt Warner, those guys, I mean, it was like a platter of ham sandwiches, like like guys who had no business in the league.
Was one of them.
Yeah, Josh McCown threw a couple to him early on. It might have been his first TD catch was from McCown, but man, like it was Max Hall from BYU and John Navarre from Michigan, like just awful. John Skelton, the guy who played at Fordham, not good quarterbacks, but yet he's basically second in all major receiving categories. Still didn't. He's not like the single season leader as far as yards, receiving yards. I think that still belongs to David Boston, who flashed early in 2000s. But yeah,
I know Larry Fitzgerald. He's definitely been loyal to. David Boston still is number 1. Larry Fitzgerald is actually number 4 on that list. But I know Larry Fitzgerald just been so loyal to the Arizona Cardinals and. One guy, Anquan Boldin, who we mentioned, he was one of those guys that got out and got a Super Bowl with the Ravens afterwards. And I don't know, do you kind of feel like Larry was loyal to a fault? I mean, going through those quarterbacks had to be brutal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you wouldn't have faulted him after 2018 happened when they went 3-13 if he went to New England or if he went to Minnesota where he grew up. Even like Pittsburgh, he went to college in Pitt. You can kind of understand that, or maybe he follows BA down to Tampa. I just but now I just can't see that. Now the team is like, all right, we're gonna get back into contention. If you were to leave now, if only they just couldn't work out a deal. I mean, he's earned the right to do whatever he wants. I mean, he can go to the CFL and play if he wants. But it's I don't like that. Like. It's been, especially working on sports talk radio, people would call in all the time and be like, oh, why don't we trade Larry Fitzgerald and give him a chance to go win a ring? Or why don't we trade Paul Goldschmidt and he can go win a ring somewhere else? Or why don't we trade Steve Nash so he can win a ring? It's just like, no, like you want him to win here. Like stop that mentality has to stop at some point. You just got to be like, well, why don't you just get the players necessary in-house to get him a ring? I don't know, unless it's like a very like the situation would have to be perfect. The stars would have to align where you could find something to happen. Like, I mean, sure, I absolutely want to see him win a ring, but I just I don't like that mentality, I guess. What do you guys think?
Definitely one thing I loved about Larry as well is that I know when Anquan was close to up on his contract, he said, I'll take less so this guy can stay. And he's an ultimate like team guy. Like I know he trains at the MMA gym called The Lab there with Benson Henderson and everything. And he's an athletic guy, as everyone's saying.
Yeah.
But he always invites all the rookies to come out there with him. So he gets familiarity with them. And I don't know if this guy's like the ultimate spotter on on hurry up downs, but that guy always rips the ball out of his teammates' hands and places the ball down for the ref. Like, let's get this going. Let's get this going. That's like the type of guy that I've always loved. And like, man, like I know his time's coming to an end. I know he's chasing Jerry's record for sure. And honestly, that's the type of guy I wouldn't mind breaking it. It hurts my heart to say, but how can you not love Larry Legend, man? That guy's a beast. I mean, remember him, that slant he took against Pittsburgh, just God, that was amazing to see. And that guy's definitely a beast. Always one of my favorites.
You remember that?
Do you have a favorite Larry Fitzgerald play?
Yeah, that 75-yard scamper in the playoffs that I saw. But then, I mean, as you were mentioning, the Super Bowl, I mean, that would have been the play right there, where he just cut, he cut it up the seam and just busted out. Next thing you know, he's in the end zone, and they've got the lead.
Polamalu trailing him.
I know, but then he also, like, in the same Super Bowl at halftime. You remember the James Harrison pick, and then he took it to the house. Larry was so close; he almost got like it was man, what was his name? It was a cornerback. Safety intro roll.
Oh yeah.
Like was kind of like lingering off the sidelines and he like slowed down Fitz where he might have been able to get Harrison, but
Fitzgerald was going, he was out of bounds when he started running, right?
Yeah.
To chase him down. Yeah, I remember that.
I think he was on the opposite side of the field too. Like he just wanted to win. He just wants to win so bad, and he's all about the team. Like, man.
I just don't think he's gonna get to I think Rice is safe, man. I don't think he's going to get to any of those.
Me neither. Yeah.
We saw Father Time. He's undefeated, and he started kind of flex a little bit this year. I mean, if Larry comes back and he catches, 40 balls next year, if he comes back, that'd be a good season for him. So, yeah, I don't know. He's still a long way. I mean, Jerry Rice, if you look, I've been seeing all the Tom Brady stats today that are just like mind-boggling. But Jerry Rice, just look at his Wikipedia page, and it's insane, all the records he has.
So when it comes to Larry, like one thing that we always like to say is, so Larry's Batman, who was his Robin?
That's a good question. I mean, I think Q's in the conversation. And then you gotta decide from the quarterbacks that he had the success with. Was it Carson Palmer or was it Kurt Warner?
Warner had 11 more touchdowns to him.
Did he really? Yeah. So
they did do the Super Bowl,
and he also wore the single glove. I mean,
he did wear the single glove. He was Michael Jackson out there on the field. I don't know. I think you're right with Warner and with the 11. I didn't know that about the 11 extra touchdowns than Palmer. Their numbers are pretty similar, like overall, but I guess Warner just had the magic that had that rapport with Fitz. So I think you're right with Warner. I don't think you could be wrong going that way with 13.
Definitely.
On it.
All right. You got anything else about his favorite player there, Duran?
No, that's it for me. Nice talking about Larry as always.
All right. So we talked about your favorite player, Larry Legend. You got to love that guy. Always has a special place in everybody's heart. You're not a football fan if you don't. But we want to know your favorite coach. I mean, they had a lot of favorite coaches. I mean, I don't know if it's BA like you were talking about, or if is it, the famous rant of Dennis Green. Like I'm curious, man. I want to know your favorite coach for sure.
They are who we thought they were.
We let them off the hook.
We let them off the hook. Yeah, that was a great ramp. That was a little bit before I started covering the team. Ken Wisenhunt was the guy that got him to the Super Bowl and then kind of fell off a cliff a little bit.
Jumped off a cliff.
Yeah, man, it was rough at the end there. BA, it's tough to get away from Bruce Arians because he was always good for a soundbite. Like he was always, he started his introductory press conference where, he's 60 and sexy, no risk it, no biscuit. He always had like the one-liners, and he seemed like your fun uncle. He seemed like you always wanted to go get a beer with the guy or something stronger after the game. And the word is he had like in his car, in the back of his car, he had like a bar. He just had a. He was just a good old boy. He wanted to hang out with them, and then they had some of their most successful years. They won triple digit or double digit games 3 straight seasons. They went to the AFC Championship game. It's pretty easy. That's a slam dunk. It's Bruce Arians was, a really good coach. They've had some like colorful guys, like you mentioned, Dennis Green. There wasn't a whole lot of success. Probably his biggest move was drafting Fitz because he used to be a ball boy.
Oh yeah,
for the Vikings.
Yeah. Yep.
And then like Dave McGinnis was the guy who was the head coach for like the Tillman Plummer years, but there wasn't like, man, one year, like the 2018 season was rough. It was like Steve Wilkes, and the guy just didn't have really any personality. No. And then I honestly I don't know what the deal is with Kingsbury. He seems like he's really chilled out. and he doesn't like offer you much anymore. He's like, here's a guy that used to like do dances at Texas Tech. He would do like the Dougie at Texas Tech, and then now he's just all buttoned up and he won't give you anything. He won't give you
He's
any
got
emotion.
that mansion though, man.
He's got that bachelor pad in Paradise Valley, where he's got the draft going on, and he's got the outdoor fire when it's 95 degrees outside.
Yeah. Kingsbury, I thought you were gonna say Arians. Has like the best win percentage of most recent coaches, and the offenses and things that he runs is pretty exciting. But to me, if Kingsbury has any success here, especially if they win a Super Bowl, he might be one of those guys that could take that title for being favorite coach, especially for people nowadays.
His seat though is already starting to heat up a little bit, which is pretty crazy to think about.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, they go from 3 wins to 5 wins to 8 wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his 2 years, they see incremental success. But if you watch this team down the stretch, they imploded. They had an opportunity. We talk about the Niners. They're going up against C.J. Beathard. That team was just ravaged by injuries, and they just can't. They can't get a W at home. They can't get a W at home in Week 16, and then the next week, they can't get a W against John Wolford at quarterback for the LA Rams, a guy making his first start who is in the AAF.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have a easier path to the playoffs. All they had to do was win one game down the stretch, and they just couldn't get it done. And I think I'm not ready to bury Cliff. I'm not saying, hey, let's just fire him now and be proactive about it. But the jury's still out after 2 seasons, which is it's not a good thing. But then we see, like on Sunday, we see a guy who has an immense amount of success make a boneheaded call like Matt LaFleur did on 4th and 8, or 4th and goal with 8 to go, and you give the ball back. Like I don't know. I obviously he was under a microscope, but yeah, I think the jury's definitely still out on Cliff. But yeah, if he can take the team to the next level, yeah, he'll be beloved. Absolutely. Because
he's definitely weird how he got his job. I mean, he didn't have a winning record at Texas Tech. He was the OC for USC for all of 3 hours.
Right.
And then he gets hired as the head coach for Arizona Cardinals. I mean, it definitely made some splash. It was definitely headline news. And we all knew that he was going to drive Kyler Murray. Thank you for Nick Bosa, by the way.
Right.
You're welcome. I don't know, man. Like, he just still doesn't move the needle for me. Like,
it's a head scratcher. It's one of the weirdest. Here's the thing: Sean McVay happened. People wanted the next Sean McVay, and since he was in Sean McVay's Rolodex or in his phone, that they knew each other, and they probably saw him at some swanky pool party.
Together.
Like, oh, this guy he's an offensive guru, and he could be the next Sean McVay. We've seen the offense kind of succeed, but it's not. They still have a ton of room for improvement.
Definitely,
but they still got a long way to go. I just don't I don't know about Cliff yet. It's going to be interesting. I think if you were to rank the offensive coaches in the division, I mean, you've got Shanahan, you got McVay, and then Cliff. He was 35-40 at Texas Tech, and he had Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if that's getting. I know you didn't have any defense, but at the same time, man, I mean, I
don't think Big 12 has any defense, man.
But you got Mahomes. I mean, I know.
Yeah.
That's just and to get fired from his alma mater.
Yeah.
That's a tough look. I mean, and then he goes to USC and he's probably like measuring Clay Helton's office for ready to take it over in like a year and a half. And then he gets like this crazy. He gets hired in the NFL. He failed out of college basically, and he gets an NFL gig. But that's just the way the league's going with these offensive coaches, I guess.
Yeah,
it's like an overcorrection. They had this defensive coach in Steve Wilkes. They averaged like 14 points a game, and then they had to fix it because the offensive philosophy was like in the Jurassic era. Well, everybody's in the space age in the NFL, and that just wasn't getting it done. So he's helped, like he really has. But like I said, jury's still out on him.
Definitely. Shit. Anything else about his favorite coach there, Duran?
Instead of favorite coach, do you have a coach that you hated the most?
Man, hates. I don't know. I don't think I ever hated it.
Okay.
I didn't like. I disliked, and it was frustrating to watch
Oh.
this guy Mike McCoy. You know who that is? He was their offensive coordinator, and he would just run these dive plays. He would run like a 3-yard dive play. Yeah. And it was like you're chasing 57 points, and he's like, oh, let's run the ball up the middle and see if it works out this time. It's
we still got to establish a run. It's like, what? Dude, you're down by 25.
Yeah, but that, and also he had that fraud Sam Bradford as a starting quarterback, and then Josh Rosen was a failed draft pick. So I mean, but still, I mean, McCoy he seemed like a nice guy, but man, he was just overmatched by the time he got to Arizona. He was a failed coach with the Chargers. You guys probably know that. And then he had to, I mean, you're like, okay, this is a guy that won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. He's got to know something, right? Yeah. And then you just realize, was it that Demarius Thomas exists?
Was it the Wilkshire same year?
Yeah.
That was brutal. I've always been a David Johnson fan, and watching him that year, I remember just being like, something's up. I don't know what this offense just, the year before that, David Johnson was so good, and then that shift was just, it was sad. I felt bad for him.
It was weird because Mike McCoy was like that high school coach, like, hey man, like veer right worked, let's try veer left. Like, it's not gonna work. And I think the defense knew, like, okay, that worked, so just override the other side, and bam, you stopped it.
He was fired in like 7 games. I mean,
it
was insane. And then Leftwich, who's in Tampa now, that was when he got his first taste. Yeah. So I can't think of anybody who was like, man, I can't stand this guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's nobody like Greg Williams on the Cardinals that I've ever encountered. I can't stand
that hateable. Understand. Moving on from coaches, just getting back to your history of being a fan. Do you remember your first Arizona Cardinals memory?
I think Jake the Snake leading them back in the late 90s in DC. I remember watching that and having ties to Phoenix, and kind of talked to some friends and some family about that, and just kind of how I got to watch that game. Yeah, and you kind of saw that team was it was more than just the guy who was the ASU standout that was taking them to the next step. It was more than just kind of a novelty. He was the real deal for a little bit. I know he threw a ton of picks, but he gave that organization a jolt. He did. So that was probably one of the first ones.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah. And then Jerry Maguire.
Rod Tidwell, man.
Right.
Shit. Yeah, man. That was definitely.
Remember just growing up, I don't remember the Cardinals being on TV that much, but being a Cowboys fan, the Emmitt Smith rollover when he finished out his career there, I think that's when I really, watched the Cardinals play.
They would get blacked out so often because they wouldn't sell out.
Wouldn't sell tickets. Yeah.
It was a big thing for a long time before they got that new stadium. It was rough. And then, that Emmitt Smith, it still looks weird if you Google Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, definitely.
Uniform.
That would be like one of those things like Larry Fitzgerald leaving and you see him in another uniform. You're like, this just doesn't look right.
Even the Brady thing, even Brady doesn't look right still. Even though he
definitely doesn't.
It's not just a money grab with him, but it was with Emmitt. And I think he wanted to kind of like push his rushing record
exactly
a little bit further.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
The Cardinals came on my radar, I should say, was when good old Lawrence Phillips missed that block against Nias Williams, and I was just like, damn, so long Steve Young.
Right.
I always had kind of like little resentment towards the Cardinals. But I mean,
that's an easy guy to hate, right?
Yeah,
Lawrence Phillips.
It's got to hate, but man, like you got to respect his play. That guy was so speedy. Another guy that didn't end his career and where he started his career, he ended it when it wearing the Rams. Like that was.
Yeah, they went to a Super Bowl with the Rams.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. He was part of the greatest show on turf. He was part of that defense.
Yeah, he was.
Adam Archuleta and those guys. Was he on that squad too?
Yeah, I want to say Adam Archuleta was.
Yeah. That was kind of odd. But that, you know what, that was one of those, I think that kind of started the conversation for Phoenix fans where they see a guy who's a Hall of Famer caliber player, like Aeneas, and he goes to another team and he competes for a Super Bowl. And then so people, they're used to seeing that. They're just like used to seeing guys shipped out. They tried to do it with Charles. He went to Houston, and what they have like Scottie Pippen and Hakeem at that point, and they just didn't do anything. But they tried to get him a ring.
Yeah, I know they tried, didn't really succeed.
Ring chasing.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to do it, especially when you're trying to get those Hall of Fame numbers up.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So moving on from your first memory, you might have already mentioned it, the Green Bay game, where you said was the best game you ever saw. But do you have a favorite Arizona Cardinals memory?
I mean, they won that game. It was as far as, there was the Super Bowl where they, Fitz streaked down the field. Let's see. Trying to remember. I mean, you had the Hail Mary this year. I mean, that was you don't see that. You just don't see that.
That was a dope play.
I know. It's you just kind of like you close your eyes and you pray. Like he throws it 45 yards in the air, and Hopkins, he's got 3 guys around him, and he come down with it like at the buzzer, or walk off win like that. You just don't see that often. It just doesn't happen. I remember like McCown hit somebody at the end of the season to knock the Vikings out of the playoffs, but that was like,
oh, that was Poole.
Yeah, that was Poole.
You got the key to the city. Yeah.
And then like I remember the Vikings broadcast hearing that over and over, like just devastation.
They saved the Packers, man. I mean, I think they gave Poole like sidelines tickets to that game against the Seahawks.
Green Bay gave Poole those keys to the city. That's hilarious, man. That's so funny. That was Dante Culpepper, wasn't it? Was he the Vikings quarterback?
Damn, he might have been.
Yeah.
He was. Definitely
was like 04.
Yeah.
Just that was rough for them.
Yeah, 04, 05. I think it was 05. So yeah, it probably was an 04 season.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about David Johnson too. I mean, that guy had his 2016 season. I mean, very rarely do you have a guy that would fantasy football team or players are just like all on one of your guys, and 20 touchdowns. I mean, he nearly goes 1,000.
Yeah,
I mean, that
rushing,
was
receiving, crazy.
Never seen that before, really. And then McCaffrey comes and makes it look easy, but that was kind of a wild year. And that was Super Bowl expectations that year too. Mm-hmm. They fell short, but Johnson had a huge year. Yeah.
He had a huge year. Was he doing returns still then? I remember him being big in the return game. It might have been the year before, but that's when he really broke out and started going crazy, especially for fantasy football. And then that next year was just he was money. I'm pretty sure he won fantasy football leagues for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think you're right. So 2015, he came in and they ended up taking his jersey and his cleats. They put it in the Hall of Fame in his first 3 games. I think he had a return touchdown, he had a receiving touchdown, and he had a rushing touchdown.
Oh shit!
And I guess nobody had ever done that before.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of like he just hit the scene. But they had a couple. They had CJ2K on that team as a running back.
Oh yeah.
They think they had Andre Ellington, who was their starting running back for a while. But it took a little bit for BA to really just to give the whole run game to David Johnson. But he went off, and
I remember. I think he eventually took over when CJ2K got hurt. I think he got a leg injury.
Yeah,
and then David Johnson really took over from then on.
Every game that season, they were like, "Hey, did you know that Chris Johnson, he got shot and he has a bullet in his arm?" You remember that?
Yeah.
Every national broadcast they would bring it up. It was kind of funny.
Yep. I don't. We'll talk about it later. But favorite memory. It's not always fun being a fan of any team. Do you have a worst memory out there from a player leaving? I mean, you guys have a Super Bowl loss, player injury, or anything like that?
Probably the worst was when Matthew left, because he was such a fan favorite, and that was a guy that they hit on in the draft. They took a chance on him, and he was just a beast for so long, and they just couldn't figure something out to restructure with him.
Was it money? It's just money.
It was just money. Like they'd signed him to a deal after he tore his ACL, and but they had to re-sign him to keep him around, and they just kind of overshot it, and they were in a tough spot cap wise. and he didn't want to restructure. He thought it was disrespectful. So he hit the open market. He goes to Houston, and now he's KC, just tearing things up. That one kind of hurt a little bit. Calais Campbell, they let him walk too. But as far as losses, man, the game in Carolina was pretty deflating when they were 13-3. They make their way to the NFC Championship game, and then like Carolina just rolled them. It was like 49-15. Palmer threw. He had 7 turnovers in that game. It was just ugly. I flew out for that too. I was covering the game. It's just like, man.
Was that Carolina's like near undefeated season, 1-loss season?
15-1.
Yep. I was a victim of that. I fell to Dallas for a game and got rolled over by them as well.
The thing is though, like there was a huge snowstorm that hit that area, and just getting from Phoenix to Charlotte was damn near impossible. And somehow I made it, and my luggage got lost. Wow. I had to borrow a buddy's shirt and go to the game and cover it. And then they just like, you make all this effort and then they just get absolutely walloped. It was just ugly. Ugly.
I'm looking at it right now. Poor Carson Palmer, 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown that game. That didn't help out very much. And Cam Newton doing what he does, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and they won 49-15.
Yep.
They were rolling that year. I mean, 16, 17 other teams were a victim of that as well.
And then somehow they run into the buzzsaw that's the Broncos defense. Von Miller goes off in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it for that run for Carolina.
Yeah, I was rooting for them that year just because I saw them roll over my team. So I was like, I at least got to say that I saw the Super Bowl champ. And nope.
Was that Romo's last
that
hurrah?
Was. Yep. Wow. It was Thanksgiving.
Rough.
It was a Thanksgiving game. Cam Newton and that defense. I think Luke Kuechly had 2 picks on Romo, and that was pretty much the end for him. He got hurt that game, of course.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, one bad memory that I wanted to bring up, one that I kept thinking of it was the Anquan Bolden, the hit in the end zone.
Against the Jets?
Against the Jets.
Yeah.
Remember, he was completely knocked out cold, hands stiff and everything. And he ended up like breaking his face pretty much. It was a clear helmet to helmet hit. I don't even remember who did it to him, but that was a brutal one. I even remember Kurt Warner kind of feeling like he kind of took the blame for it on that one. He thought that he set his guy up.
Didn't he? Wasn't he like crying?
Yeah,
he was close to tears. If not, the waterworks were flowing with Kurt Warner after that. And it was like garbage time too. It wasn't even an important play. It was in the end zone, and then he got his jaw wired shut, and it ended up playing either the next week or next 2 weeks. Something just insane, just like tough football guy mentality. Yeah, that was I remember that. That was a scary moment for sure.
Definitely.
Was that the same year where Kurt got knocked out after the interception against the Saints?
That would have been his last year. Was that 2010? I'd have to check. I don't know. I think that was definitely part of their runs to the playoffs where they made it back to back. I don't know if it was the first year or if it was the second year.
Yeah, I don't remember if that was the same year.
Right.
That was definitely one that I remembered standing out to me. You got anything else from worst memory, G?
I mean, other than the Super Bowl loss, no, I don't, man.
Yeah, that was a tough one. We talked about that. Twinkle toes in the end zone. Doing that. I mean, when Larry caught that slant and made it to the end zone, I was rooting for the Cardinals. That I thought it was game over, pretty much right there. And as you see these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, you can never count them out.
Just too much time. Too much time for Big Ben back then. That was like his heyday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think he might be done after this year. I mean, I don't see him coming back. So,
what are they going to do at quarterback?
I don't know.
They just signed Dwayne Haskins.
They might reach out to the Packers or the Lions, man.
Yeah.
Or the Eagles.
Hurts or Wentz?
Wentz.
Probably Wentz. Yeah, I mean they have to eat so much money to make that deal work.
It's
insane. I can't believe so the Lions they agree that they're going to trade Stafford, but Aren't they going to owe him $19 million in dead money? Like they're just going to absorb that. That means that much to him to get him out of town.
I know that's weird. I don't know if it's just the new coach, Dan Campbell. He's got a 6-year deal. So I don't know if he just is banking on that being like, hey, I got 6 years. We'll get him out of here right now. We'll start building this thing from the ground up. I want some draft picks. I want this. I want that cap space. So we'll eat it now. But yeah, I mean, Stafford, he's been that team for a really long time. And it might be a bad way to start off as the head coach doing that.
Right. I mean, yeah. I think Detroit's probably ready.
Mm-hmm.
They just want some change, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, listen to Motor City's Dan's like 2-hour plus opening statement.
Interview.
Usually it lasts like 30 minutes for a head coach.
He's gonna bite kneecaps and
he's gonna bite kneecaps, and you knock him down. It's gonna take 2 more shots, but he's gonna come up, bite the other kneecap off, take a patella tendon with them. But at the same time, I mean, like if you look at the tough guys in the league, you probably want Matt Stafford because that guy literally probably separated his shoulder against the Browns. After a timeout, he comes back in and throws a game-winning touchdown. Like, come on, man! Like
that's an iconic moment. That was one of the funnest like games between two teams with nothing going on. I've seen that mic'd up several times. Incredible performance. And I mean, you're a Niners fan. Would you take Stafford over Jimmy G?
Yeah, I definitely would.
He's got a better arm for sure.
He's got a better arm. He
can throw the deep ball, huh?
Yeah, he gives us that dynamic that we don't necessarily have. I mean, he's definitely a little bit tougher than Jimmy G. I mean, there's reports out there like, hey, they're ready to upgrade if they can upgrade for sure. I was like, well, no shit.
Right.
I think anybody would. It's like if you can draft a Hall of Famer over like a guy that's pretty good, I'd draft a great player. Like, yeah, I'd want Stafford. I mean, you're talking about guys that have no look passes, the guy that has cannons for arms. This guy's been doing it in like silent. I mean, I think the only person that really gave him love about that was Aaron Rodgers. And still nobody else gives him love. I mean, he's been doing no look passes. This guy has a gunslinger arm. He can probably pitch better than his buddy Kershaw. He's a beast. I have so much love for Stafford. I liked him since Georgia. That guy was always such a beast, man. I like him. I mean, I'd have him over Jimmy G for sure. I mean, not saying I don't have love for Jimmy G because I definitely do, but I think I've seen the ceiling for him.
Right. Kind of a game manager.
He's a game manager, but in Shanahan's system, I'll take it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'd be fun to see what he could do outside of Detroit if he got on a good roster. And there's going to be a bunch of teams. I don't know what they get though for him. I think they just got to like take whatever pick they can get. I don't think they get like a first or a second.
Especially now that they know that they want to part ways. It's hard to gain any leverage.
Just crushed.
I mean, it's funny because I mean we're obviously talking to a Arizona fan. What did you guys give up for Carson?
7th.
You guys gave him 7th, but what you guys ship him off for?
What do you mean?
Because I'm pretty sure like Carson's deal when he first got traded, I think was it to the Raiders? They gave up was it like a first and a second for him for the Bengals, and he wasn't doing pretty much anything. Yeah, he got to that one game, but didn't he get hurt?
For Arizona? For Arizona?
For the Bengals.
Oh, yeah, he got that Polamalu hit him in the knee, didn't he?
Yeah, he hit him in the knee. He didn't really do much after that, and they still got a first and a second for him.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of looking for that deal.
I don't think they're going to get that.
He's not worth 12 for me. I'm going to say that. He's not worth 12 for me. I'll give him our second.
I'll give him our second. Still steep. That's still pretty steep.
It's still steep, but it's a high second. I mean,
and Jimmy G, you can get out of that contract, right? He's got like
he's got a no trade clause, but if he agrees to be traded to, the Lions, that'd be great because what we have is like, hey, like, our quarterback has been to the Super Bowl. He's been there and he has a Super Bowl ring. Yeah, he was a backup, but he was an understudy of Tom Brady. So we'll give you Jimmy G in like a second or a third. Like, all right, yeah.
He won't go to the Lions. All three of the Lions wide receivers are free agents this year.
You think Dan Campbell thinks Jimmy G's going to have the mentality? Kneecaps?
To bite a kneecap?
Yes. He hasn't played in forever.
I'll tell you what. We'll take a guy we'll give you a guy that takes a lot of sacks. So we'll give you C.J. Beathard.
Oh, there you go. Was he? He was about what 1-1 or 2? Was he 2-0 or 1-1 this season?
Oh man, I think he was.
He was 1-9 when he was playing the Cardinals. I was like, "There's no way they lose to C.J. Beathard," and they They did. They crapped the bed, man. It
Yeah.
was brutal.
I want to say they won that game for CJ Beathard's brother who was murdered. It was the anniversary of that. So I
Oh, was
think
it really?
yeah. So they said it was a very emotional game, that he gave a heartfelt speech, and that's what pushed him over the edge. So maybe that's what Dan Campbell wants. So hey man, we have your quarterback. Come get him.
Dan Campbell just needs to say it. He wants Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Fitz or
That-
Zach Wilson
Yeah.
or
One
Shit.
last stop. All right, let's move on a little bit. We want to get to the future expectations for you, just for your Arizona Cardinals. Moving into the draft this year, you guys have the number 16 overall pick and 3 in the top 80. So is there kind of a direction that you would like them to go here? Is work on that offensive line a little bit? Maybe help out Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray and crew? Defense, edge, cornerback, anything like that?
So what the team is really kind of at a crossroads with Patrick Peterson, who's been a mainstay. He's been a lockdown corner for a while.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that's going to be 31 next year. He's going to be an impending free agent. So you got to figure out, can you get this guy on a team-friendly deal that makes sense for both of them? I think that's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
Like I said, they went 8-8. They were right there on the cusp of the playoffs, but they fell short and missed a tremendous opportunity. They're going to have to revamp the secondary. And I think that's probably where they use 16. It's a pretty deep cornerback draft. But like when you talk about kind of helping out Cliff Kingsbury, I think it's going to be great. You mentioned the Lions receivers on the market. Either one of those guys, Galladay or Marvin Jones Jr. would be a great fit. Juju Smith-Schuster, I don't think they're going to go for a big gun like that, but there's enough guys to where you could get another playmaker via free agency, and then fill some holes in the draft at cornerback or with 16, and then second round you could take a young running back, and I think that would immediately help things out. But I would never. I'm boring to where I'm never opposed to taking a first round offensive lineman. I think it's always a place that you want to kind of stock up. It's like relievers in baseball. You can never be too short on pitching. So, in starters, I should say, just pitching overall. But I think that's what they just have to put more talent on this roster. Like, this is going to be the tough. It was easy to improve off of 3 wins, and it was easy to improve off of 5 wins. Now, when you've gotten to 8, and the division's as stacked as it is, I mean, we see crazy things happen. Like we saw the Niners, we thought they were a lock to return, and then they have all those injuries. Injuries happen. They've just got to they have to improve, and this is the toughest thing. And I think that their general manager is I don't know if he's the guy to do it. So we'll see. I mean, they got to see if they're going to bring Fitz back. Peterson. They've just got to add to this defense and this offense enough to where they can win double digits. And they've got a tough schedule next year too. Like I looked at their schedule and their opponents, and they've got 3 winnable games. Like where you just say this is a lock win. And now Urban Meyer's the coach in Jacksonville, and they're going to have Trevor Lawrence. That game gets a little bit tougher. So, improving on 8 wins is going to be hard for them. So this was an opportunity. Like the quarterbacks they faced this year, it was bad. Like they were facing Tua in his first start, faced Beathard, they faced Jalen Hurts in his first start. Like they just missed an awesome opportunity. So to improve on that, it would be pretty crazy. Even though, Kyler Murray, could he make that Josh Allen leap in his 3rd year? I think it's definitely possible. He was a beast this year already. I mean, he had the 11 rushing touchdowns. He had the 26 passing touchdowns. So if he improves on those, I mean, that you're going to be in a good spot somewhere. You're going to have a shot with the 7th playoff spot, but it's going to come down to what they do in the offseason. And I don't really have the confidence that they can make that jump.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is going to be a weird free agency just because of the cap going down this year and things like that. So there might be some guys out there that are just real cap casualties that become available. They know that teams won't be paying, top dollar for them. So they're going to have to settle. But looking at your guys, as you just mentioned, the secondary, Patrick Peterson, of course, his contract's up, Dre Kirkpatrick, Jonathan Joseph, And then on the defensive side, still Hassan Reddick, which surprised me. I can't believe his rookie deal is already up. Marcus Golden. And then on the offensive side, of course, Larry Fitzgerald's 37 years old, Kenyon Drake, and then some offensive line stuff, J.R. Sweezy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Beecham and Justin Pugh, who are both over 30 years old.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be some decisions that need to be made there.
I think Pugh might be a cap guy where they just they might get rid of that contract and might go younger at that position or cheaper. They've got their left tackle in DJ Humphries, and then they drafted the guy in the 3rd round last year that they might let take over for Beecham. But and their offensive line was nice. You know, it was a much improved. So that actually is going in the right direction. It's the secondary that's going to be the biggest key, and then getting those playmakers. And there's a lot of tough decisions, man. Like Hassan Reddick, you mentioned that he was drafted in the 1st round, did nothing for 3 years, and then they could decline that 5th year option.
Yeah,
like and then he just goes off for 12.5 sacks. He was their best passer. They will get Chandler Jones back next year, which will be nice. He had that bicep tear.
Yeah.
I mean, so they'll get a beast back, but still a lot of moves to be made.
Yeah. Hassan Reddick, I remember him coming out of college. He was one of those, he was kind of like a specialty player. Yeah. He was like a undersized pass rusher type of dude. And, he was drafted by the previous coaches. So when he came in, they declined it. And now he, like you said, led the team in sacks. So they might have regretted that to get one more year out of him just to see what he could really do.
He had 5 sacks in one game. And
is that what boosted his stats really well?
He went off against the Giants, and I think his previous season high was 4.5.
Oh,
at that point. So he had more. He had 5 in one game. So I get why they declined his option. It's just now, good for him. He had a contract season. Now he gets to go get paid, secure the bag. It's just unfortunate for the Cardinals. They probably won't. I don't know if they can make it work financially with the cap.
Yeah.
I mean, I know his DC was John. Was it Breacher?
Who's that at Temple?
No, for the Cardinals. I mean, when he was drafted, Hassan Reddick.
James Betcher.
Yeah, the Niners just picked him up as a senior defense assistant, so I can see him coming to the Niners as a tryout deal, 1 year prove it deal. But
they're not short on pass rushers, though.
I mean, you can never have in this league, man. The way it is nowadays, especially with the NFC West, how it is, you can never have too much pass rushers. Especially, and speaking of NFC West, J.R. Sweezy. I mean, I hated him when he was on the Seahawks.
Yeah,
and then playing against y'all, he was always that stout guy that played a little bit dirty, that got away with it. He's definitely one of those guys that I hated. But when it comes to me being a kind of homer for the defensive line type of guys, I definitely did a little mock draft and I had you guys picking Jalen Phillips, another pass rusher. I think that'll solidify you guys' defense, but I had forgotten that you guys are actually losing Drake Kirkpatrick as well. So maybe taking one of these, trading up is your guys' option.
Yeah, Drake Kirkpatrick was he's okay. You can find a Drake Kirkpatrick in the free agency. You can find. They need to I think they need to just move off of P2. Just be like, hey, thank you for your service. I think it's time to move on. You can go get paid by Jacksonville, whoever's going to pay you the biggest amount of money. And then we'll just revamp the secondary and find some, there's a couple guys out there that I think they could, like Desmond King II. He's a guy that would
Xavier Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Xavier Rhodes. I think there's some guys that you can get in there, get one, maybe guy free agent wise, and draft somebody and just kind of revamp it. Cause then you got to go up against Green Bay. It's at some point next year, you got to face Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams potentially. You got to get better somehow, and I don't know. You got to go up against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. You got to get corners.
Yeah.
That's not even in your division. You're already going against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And the Yak Kings in San Francisco. It's gonna be it's not gonna be easy next year.
Yeah, it's a passing league. You got to have corners. You got to. Outside of additions, subtractions, and the draft and stuff like that. About your coaching staff, we talked a little bit about Cliff Kingsbury, but I want to know how you feel about Steve Keim at GM. We talked about his hire.
There you go.
Cliff Kingsbury's hire, and I kind of felt like I remember talking about this with one of our friends, and I felt like that was kind of his Hail Mary move to kind of keep his job. I just want to know how you feel about him moving forward.
He's got to have pictures of somebody, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how he has a job. I honestly don't. I mean, when you look at, it's like, so Kyler Murray made the Pro Bowl this year, and Keim has been the GM since 2013, and he's the first round pick to make the Pro Bowl. Like, I know that sometimes is a popularity contest, but still, that's kind of an indictment, right?
Yeah.
He just isn't. He's not a good evaluator of talent. I think he's like, when you look at the Cardinals roster, it's top heavy, right? Like, you know, DeAndre Hopkins is good. You know, Kyler Murray's good. You know, Patrick Peterson's good. And like, you and I can identify those guys watching a football game and know, hey, those guys are good at football. Like, it's kind of finding the guys under, like, the glue guys, the guys in between. You just can't find them. Like, he took Isaiah Simmons and they barely played the guy this year. He was supposed to be a beast coming out of Clemson. Like, it seems like every draft they bring a guy in and then they redshirt him and they don't make it. Your first round picks have to make an impact. They really do.
You have to hit.
Isaiah Simmons, he plays 50% of the snaps. Before that, like Josh Rosen, he's already gone. Son Reddick, it took until his fourth season to pop. Robert Kimdichie was out of the league within a couple seasons. You know, DJ Humphries. Yeah, DJ Humphries didn't really start playing until his fifth year option year. Like, he just has been a horrible drafter. Like, he took three wide receivers in 2019, same draft that they took Kyler Murray, and like, who's a player? Like, Andy Isabella stinks. Keyshawn Johnson's not that big a deal. Hakeem Butler out of Iowa State, like, it's already off the rosters.
Yeah,
he's playing tight end now.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like, why didn't they try him out at tight end? Maybe they did, and he just wasn't even close to being.
I mean, he didn't. When I remember watching his spider chart, I was like, okay, it's very comparable to all these tight ends. Like, maybe they drafted him as tight end and they tried him as outside receiver. I was like, ooh, that's not the way to go. He's not very shifty. His routes stink. And one guy that I was actually really surprised about that didn't do well, no, it's not Andy Isabella, but it was actually Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be a beast. You know what I mean?
Know.
Like, people want to draw comparisons coming out of Fresno State to Devontae Adams. I knew he wasn't going to be that, but I thought he was going to be a solid receiver 3, and he's not even seeing time. And then speaking of your boy Steve, in 2018, didn't he blow like didn't he get arrested?
Extreme DUI, yeah.
Yeah, DUI.
Likes to throw him back and get behind the wheel. Yeah, it was and then somehow he survived that. I don't know,
thought
man.
That was the end for him. I was like, oh yeah,
should have been. 2018, like, they just wanted to rip that out of the franchise encyclopedia. Like, 2018 never happened, and that was one of the worst rosters ever constructed. And they just didn't do any. They signed Sam Bradford, who's probably one of the worst free agent signings of all time. Like, the guy made $15 million to play 3 games. And then people are like, well, that got us Kyler Murray. I was like, well, you had to endure like one of the worst seasons of all time. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't give anybody, he doesn't deserve a hall pass for that. Like, him and BA were a great match, and they had a lot more success than this franchise has ever seen, but it wasn't enough to merit keeping his job to this point, like, to being in the position in this pivotal of off season to call the shots and like take advantage of Kyler Murray's rookie contract, where you have the ability to pay a bunch of players outside of the quarterback position. Like, it's just the stakes are too high, and I think you got the wrong guy calling the shots.
Yeah, you guys need to give Louis Riddick a call.
Somebody, anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this team is in that point where if you get some fresh eyes on it, like somebody who makes the right choices could take them to the next level. It's just,
you guys need to find a position for Isaiah Simmons, because that guy is too much of a beast not to be on the field.
No,
if you guys don't want him, cut him. I'll take him. Shit.
Look, I'm pretty confident he's gonna pop at some point. I think he's gonna be on the Buda Baker like rise, but like I said, especially when you're this close, you've got to have those first round impact makers. Yep. Like, you got to have them first year. You just can't. You don't have the luxury of letting these guys sit 1 year. You just don't. It's not 1996.
Yeah, definitely. One guy I always watch on the Cardinals too is actually a local guy that grew up here. We knew him since he was a little kid. Kylie Fitz.
Yeah, pass rusher.
He was not that big when we knew him. He was like 2 foot tall, probably up to our knees.
Yeah,
And
he was
like,
5
if you
years
see
old.
his dad, you'll understand why he's that big. That guy's humongous now. I know his brother was he actually played for the A's organization, and Matt Fitz, and it's just so funny being that Kyler it was a first round draft for the A's, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. My boy Matt Fitz, and I was like, wait, hang on, is that last name Fitz right there?
Yeah.
Kylie Fitz. Like, damn, that's crazy to see him nowadays.
He had a big play on special teams. I want to say caused a fumble. Yeah, kicked it basically.
Yeah, kicked it. Lucky play. He's also a free agent coming up this year.
Yeah.
You guys also had
gonna make or break their offseason bringing back Kylie Fitz.
Yeah. You guys had you guys also had Scooby Wright as well.
Scooby Wright, former Arizona
local guy here, but I thought he was gonna. He won the Nursery Award out of Arizona. I thought honestly the Arizona Cardinals were gonna draft him because they need linebacker help.
And, I covered him in college, man. He was a beast. He had like almost close to 200 tackles that 1 year.
Yeah,
1 year. Holy shit!
I mean, it was like it was 180 or something stupid.
Wow.
And he was all over the field. He had this huge game against Oregon, and he was just making plays all over the field. And then he's just a little undersized, and just couldn't find a little spot in the NFL. Drafted by the Browns late. What was it? 7th round.
7th round.
And then picked up by the Cardinals, and he was small and not as athletic as sometimes you have the luxury of doing in college. But dude, that guy played his ass off at Arizona. He was
definitely
awesome in college.
That play, like you said, against Oregon, I remember he sacked Mariota, but he stripped it at the same time.
Yeah.
And it sucked because I was like, man, I want Oregon to win because it got money riding on him. But I was like, man, my boy Scoob, definitely, get some.
Yeah, and he had a cool little chip on his shoulder. I think like his Twitter account was like 3-star Scoob, because like he was a 3-star recruit, and then he went out and beasted out in college. I mean, yeah, it was a bummer. He because you were pulling from him. He's like kind of a local angle, played for the Wildcats down in Tucson, and just couldn't get on the field.
Yeah, he grew up here in Sonoma County, so we always wanted to push him, had love for him, and then like you said, he had that chip on the shoulder for sure. 3-star Scoob.
Right.
Got it. I think that's it for me. G, you got anything else?
I got nothing else.
All right,
for sure. Bo, thanks a lot for coming on. Stay on for a little bit after if you can. That'd be great. If you want to follow him, we will have all of his links. Again, you can see this guy, Locked On Cardinals. He's the co-host. I believe the co-host is Alex Clancy.
Yeah, California boy. So you guys have to get him on sometime. I apologize. Already, he's awful as far as his sports takes. Terrible. So I apologize in advance.
We like that.
We'll reach out to him because definitely, I mean, me being a Niners fan, Duran being a Cowboys fan, we hear all kinds of takes that are terrible.
All right.
I'll say this right now: Aaron Rodgers is not leaving. But okay. But again, on Twitter, it's Bo Brack. Brock.
Easiest way to say it is Bo Brack. Yeah.
Bo Brack on Twitter. We'll put all the links below. Again, man, anything to say, last send off before we head off right now?
Yeah, just check out the podcast. It's Alex and I, we chop it up. We have some fun. It's not just Cardinals football. And then you can listen to me on Fridays on the Locked On NFL podcast. Me and your boy Q, who's a Raiders host. We kind of have a national look at what's going on. Usually previewing big games. This weekend we start to preview the Super Bowl. That's coming up every Friday. So
I'm definitely a subscriber of that. I mean, I know the original host was BD Peacock.
Yeah.
So Locked On Niners, man. I'm always locked on to that, man.
Nice. Yeah, Brian's a good guy.
Definitely. All right, Duran. Anything last to set off?
That's it, man. We're ready.
All right, man. Thanks again for joining us today. Again, look at Duran's background.